Development Committee, Sri Ajit Bhai C. Shah, to please welcome our Central Council member. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Anand. Today I am pleased to say that our Central Council member, Mr. Aniket Talati, who is a chairman of Digital Transformation and E-Learning and also a chairman of FRRB. He is the past secretary of our Western India Regional Council and a partner at Talati and Talati LLP. Only one word is enough to know him, Mr. Talati, because his father was also a council member and a president of the institute, and his grandfather was also a member of Central Council member. So without wasting our much of time, I hand over the charge to Aniket Talati. Aniket.
Thank you so much, Ajit Bhai, respected chairman of this committee, president of C Association, Anand Bhai, secretary, Ketan Bhai, and all my dear participant friends. I think, let me first of all compliment and congratulate C Association and especially this PD committee for taking up this task and ensuring that in these times of lockdown, you're still enabling and using technology. I think we read a lot of the seniors in our profession in this C Association also were very keen that how can we use technology so that instead of accumulating all the people at one location and then having to share knowledge, how can we use the benefits of technology in terms of having Ketan bhai, am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, there was some error. Okay. So yes, so the compliments to the C Association. I think you've done a phenomenal job, and especially on a topic like auditing standards. Generally, Ahmedabad માં કહેવાય એવું કે કમાવાનો topic હોય તો જ લોકો આવે, and therefore auditing standards, whenever we've conducted, it may be at association or at the branch, participation has been low. But I'm told that today's session we have reached maximum capacity. So I'm extremely glad to have this kind of participation. અને એટલું જ કહીશ કે કદાચ ઓડિટિંગ સ્ટેન્ડર્ડ્સ થી આપણે માનતા હોઈએ એમ કમાવાનું નથી, પણ ગુમાવવાનું ઘણું બધું છે. And in today's day and world, when we are looking at a very changed scenario of the government, of the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, a very renewed oversight. And believe me, friends, when I say this, that it's the government, it may be NFRA, it may be MCA, or even your own institute, because we have a lot of government nominees who are members of this council and also members of disciplinary directorate and also members of all important committees of the ICAI. In this case, the importance of auditors has increased, the surveillance has increased, and therefore the expectation has gone so vast that it becomes sometimes very difficult if you do not have the right form of documentation or the right form of standards that you have followed in order to arrive at your opinion, to be able to justify the issuance of the report or the certificate. So friends, today what I have tried to do in session that has been assigned to me is I have tried to carve out all the engagement standards that are useful to us in day-to-day life. I think it was in one of the discussions at C Association that one or two members, Rikin Bhai, if I recollect correctly, had said, what are these standards, especially certificates that we give to banks or that are demanded for clients? For example, a net worth certificate that may be demanded to be given at the time of appearing for an interview. Are there standards which govern? Are there illustrations which are available by the institute to cover this? Let me tell you, friends, every possible scenario that can be there has been actually visualized, and there is a standard that exists for it. The only sad part is our limited knowledge of these standards. So just to give you a brief, the whole topic that I will be taking with you today is going to revolve around the standards on auditing and also the periphery other standards that are there, because essays is something that exists for so many years. It used to be in earlier form as SAS, then AAS, and now finally we have it in the current form. But there are also so many other type of standards which you all may not be aware of, and it is going to be my pursuit to make sure that I'm able to take you through these. And therefore, friends, the topic that I have titled, it is not relating to just standards on auditing. I've typed it as engagement standards, and I would like to thank the CA Association કે કદાચ 10-15 વર્ષ પછી CA ફાઇનલની ઓડિટની એક્ઝામ આપી એ પછી પહેલીવાર બધા સ્ટાન્ડર્ડ મેં પણ આટલા બધા ધ્યાનથી વાંચ્યા હતા. But like I said, let me first emphasize once again the importance of these standards. And I'll give you small examples. This year, as Ajit Bhai mentioned, I am chairman of the FRRB. The FRRB is the Financial Reporting and Review Board, which has a mandate to review general purpose financial statements that are issued by the companies. So far, every year, 100 financial statements were verified. So they were picked up from the public domain. The method of picking up this is a random council approved process where I as chairman also do not have power to say Mr. X's or Mr. Y's company we must pick up. There is a very scientific process that exists, and based on that process, which is council approved, the companies get picked up. Besides that, friends, on the FRRB board, we have special invitee members coming from CNAG, from RBI, from all other MCA and other agencies, and therefore it's a very open kind of a discussion that happens, and they also a lot of times refer cases. I can share with you this year for the first time, a new regulator in the form of IBBI has also joined the FRRB, and they have given us a list of companies that have gone in liquidation. And all these companies, out of them on a random selection basis, the institute is going to analyze the accounts. Therefore, what I'm trying to drive home is it becomes extremely critical that we follow our accounting and auditing standards to the core. Because if there is any non-compliance that is noticed in followance of any of these standards, it becomes a very difficult part for you, because FRRB then, if it finds that you have deviated from the true and fair view, is compelled by its statement to refer this matter to director discipline. And then the director discipline takes this case forward. I can share with you very honestly that if the FRRB board, after going through this processes, has referred it to director discipline, 9 out of 10 cases actually end up meeting the fate of pronouncing the member as guilty. So therefore, extremely critical. Also a big change that is coming this year. And like I said, the government, the MCA are all looking at its auditors in a very different role going forward. And therefore the peer review is also taking a huge change this year. All of you would be aware that earlier we used to get names of 3 persons who you could have appointed any one of them as your peer reviewer. He would come and do the peer review. Starting this year, there is a software which has been implemented by the peer review board. Again, I do not form a part of that board because there is a China wall between FRRB and peer review board. But the peer review board is implementing a software where there will be only one name which will go to the company. Second, the entire audit will have to be done through a software which is mandated by them. All communications and certificate issuance will happen to that through the software. So again, like I said, the opportunity for somebody to exercise his own discretion will reduce to a large extent. You will have to follow set patterns. You will have to definitely follow what the checklist the institute is going to give. So that is going to become extremely difficult. The peer review statement, friends, has also been amended to state that now the peer review board can order a suo motu peer review, where based on the UDIN information, they find that certain information exists with the institute to initiate an inquiry. So this is going to be the first step. Why I'm trying to tell you all of this is to give your utmost importance going forward to these engagement and audit standards. I can share with you my own experience, friends, when I came back from Mumbai after doing 3 years of articleship and started practicing in Ahmedabad and would discuss with auditors in and around the city. And, you know, we would try and understand at what level the audit was going. At that time, people would say routine challenge hai, ledger scrutiny challenge hai. I was, for one, because I came from the big fours where I did my articles, could never understand where is this concept of routine, where is this concept of ledger scrutiny, or whatever other terms that were, you know, being practiced in Ahmedabad. Those are all old techniques of verifying the audit. Those are all procedures. But friends, it is extremely important to understand that besides these procedures, it is important to follow the standards in terms of our documentation, in terms of our communication, and also in terms of how the report is issued. Because I may be very good at grammar and English, and I may think that this is the most appropriate way to present a fact in my report. But there are standards, and the only reason standard exists is to make sure that all auditors are at benchmark positions, and we are doing something which the institute mandates. Therefore, my request to all of you is, let's go through this engagement standards. Let's try and learn. I have honestly made an attempt to include in the 1-2 hours that I had today, because as you are aware, the institute is not functioning in a physical mode where I can go to Delhi and work. But what has happened is we are doing everyday meetings on Blue Jeans, on Zoom, and therefore I could get a couple of hours to prepare for it. I've tried to give you a good summary of the auditing standards, and I'm sure each one of us will go back after this 1 hour, 1.5 hour session, slightly more uh, informed about the standards. And also we will all, I'm sure, thinking, because it happened to me when I first entered the council, oh, this certificate I used to give, and I never knew that there exists a standard which I can follow to give these. So let me first of all, friends, take you to the authority attached to documents issued by the institute, that is by the council. As you are all aware, friends, the institute not only issues the standards on accounting and the standards on auditing, but what it also issues are guidance notes and statements besides the AS and the SA. So what is the critical difference between statements and guidance note? Let's please clearly understand that statements are always issued with the view to securing compliance by members on matters which, in the opinion of council, are critical. So it is extremely critical that you follow them, and therefore they are, with the full force of the council, made mandatory. So whenever you see a statement, it is not something that you may or may not follow. As a member of the institute, it becomes compulsory for all of us to follow. Then there are guidance notes. The guidance notes are primarily designed to provide guidance on specific matters of professional work, which members in their day-to-day practice may be facing. For example, there is a guidance note which deals with oil and gas. There are different guidance notes that deal with tax audits, for GST audit. So these guidance notes are in the form of a guidance that the committee and the council wish to give to the members. These guidance notes are also to be issued under the authority of the council, but are not mandatory. They are recommendatory in the nature. And why I say it comes to the council is because, friends, you will see, especially during the GST era, a lot of other reference manuals, reference materials, other publications are also issued. Now, these are issued by the committees themselves. They never come to the council, and they are only educative and informative in nature. So those fall very below. Guidance notes at least come to the council, but are recommendatory in nature. But of course, you should ordinarily follow these recommendations. If you are not following them, you must have a strong basis to justify why you did not do a particular treatment as per the guidance note, and you went ahead and made your own treatment. Therefore, I always ask this question whenever we are dealing with auditing standards is, you will look at all the publications of the institute, and we think that, oh wow, institute has such a beautiful, colorful library, pink, red, green. But friends, let's understand, these are not colors that we choose. Somebody in the committee wakes up and says, I like pink and I like red. Each of them has a very important meaning to it. The pink ones which you will see will always be on standards. So there is a compendium on internal audit standards. There is a compendium on auditing standards. There is a compendium on accounting standards, and the Ind AS. These will be in pink. There is dark green, which is for the guidance note. And then there are others which follow for the guides, for the education material, for background material, or for technical guides. So there is an importance and significance to it. I know a lot of us like to keep these books within our library, but somewhere a lot of us may not have thought what is the significance of this color. I thought I should share this with you also so that you can appreciate the meaning of this. Now, friends, when we are dealing with standard on auditing, it's important for us to assert what is the meaning of assurance and an assurance engagement. This is again defined at the institute in the standard. An assurance engagement means an engagement in which a practitioner expresses a conclusion designed to enhance the degree of confidence. So what you are doing is that something which the client could have prepared, a practitioner is involved so that the degree of confidence is increased for the intended users. And this is very important, other than the responsible party about the outcome. So other than the person, that is other than the client, if somebody is going to evaluate it, for example, there is a third party, we give it to shareholders, we may give it to other stakeholders. So when somebody else except the client is going to deal with it or is going to rely on it, it is defined as assurance. And it is important for us to understand why assurance is defined, because based on the assurance, if an engagement falls within an assurance or not, the applicability of the standard gets defined. So I hope so far we are able to understand the difference between a guidance note, a statement, and now more importantly, what constitutes an assurance engagement. Friends, there are engagements which are frequently performed, which do not meet the above definition. So engagement standards, like I told you, but there can be other engagements which are not such, which is engagement covered by SRS, such as agreed upon procedures. What are agreed upon procedures? I will probably take you through when we go through the standards in detail. But as the name suggests, it is an agreed upon procedure where the client tells you that please verify A, B, C, D. You list that A, B, C, D not only in your engagement letter, but also in your report, and you give a agreed upon procedure. Therefore, any reliance beyond that is not going to be make any sense for any user of the financial statements, and therefore it is not covered as assurance. Preparation of tax returns. Now, when you are preparing a tax return, in the new code of ethics, we have a new terminology called administrative services, where we have very clearly categorized that if any part of your work that only deals with preparation and filing, where no application of mind or assurance is provided, they are administrative in nature. And therefore, by the sheer name administrative, these are not assurance services. And consulting advisory engagements such as management and tax consulting, these also do not form the purview of assurance engagements. So we have to very clearly distinguish. And in today's lecture, we are not going to deal with management consulting, tax consulting, and these services which are regarding non-assurance functions. We will discuss what are the assurance functions. The ethical principles that a member is bound to follow, they are derived from A, the Chartered Accountants Act, B, the Code of Ethics, and all the relevant pronouncements which are pronounced by the council and notified. It may be in the form of guidelines, it may be in the form of notification or statements. So these together are referred to as the code, as we like to call it within the disciplinary mechanism of the institute. The framework for assurance engagements, it applies to SAs, that is the standard on auditing, SREs and SAEs. So if you look at the chart on the left, friends, the Chartered Accountants Act is there. Below that is the SQC. SQC is an overwhelming umbrella, if I can use the word, which talks about the quality control. So any engagement that you do, you may provide an audit report. It may be an audit report for a company under Companies Act. It may be a tax audit report. It may be a GST audit report. These are all audits. There may be certain certification work that you do. There may be a limited review work that you do. All the engagements fall under the overarching umbrella of standards on the standard on quality control. So we have one SQC as of now, the SQC1. Then the work is divided between two, the assurance engagements and the related services. What are assurance services? We've learned the definition where there is a third party who relies on it. So the assurance services have historical financial information, which can be in the form of essays, where if it's dealing with historical financial information, then આપણે audit કહીએ, annual financial audit, annual tax audit, એ બધાના કામ જ્યારે આપણે કરતા હોઈએ, then you are supposed to follow standards on auditing. When you are doing a review, what is review? In common terms, you will understand it is a limited review that the SEBI requires under clause 49 of the listing agreement. For example, you have a company which is listed on the BSE or the NSE, and quarterly you are providing certain reports. આપણે જે report આપીએ છીએ SRE ના under હોય છે. So historical financial information માં audit માટે SS, review માટે SRE. Audit and review, the reason I say audit is because it has the highest level of assurance, and little lower is review. Then we move on to assurance engagements. So these are engagements which constitute providing certain assurance, but do not deal with historical financial information. Those are covered by SAE. A typical example of an SAE, friends, is the one that we give in terms of a bank finance. Sometimes there are projections that are to be certified. Sometimes for valuation purposes, there is a 5-year projection that requires a chartered accountant to provide certain assurance function. Those are covered by the SAEs. And finally, the related services. So these are not strictly assurance functions, but they go parallel to assurance, which is related services are covered through SRS. So this is the whole wide gambit of the assurance standard framework. I will not go too deep into the essays because they are very technical in nature, and we have some fantastic material also available on the Digital Learning Hub, where standard by standard, we have given 1-hour module of the video and certain questions with content that we have put up for all of these standards. So those are going to be there on the standard and auditing. But like I mentioned, it's important for us in the day-to-day practice to look at not just essays, but these other engagements, which I will cover in my presentation. Standard auditing and SRE, those two are critical for historical information, for future SAE, and for others SRS. So this is once again the summary. I think somebody is using their iPad. My request is if you can, I'll share the presentation to the CA Association. This is just prepared by me in the last 40 minutes. So no proprietary material here. I'll be more than happy to share it, and Anand Bhai and Ketan Bhai can please transmit it to all the members who are interested. So like I said, SQC, the overall umbrella, auditing standards for annual financial audits, review for quarterly reviews or other review engagements, assurance engagements which are other than historical, and SRS. Therefore, friends, three important terms for us to understand. What is attestation? Because we commonly try and use and interchange these words, but they all three have different purposes. Attestation is performed to evaluate and review how true the data or information is when compared to the stated purpose. That is just attestation. So you are just evaluating and reviewing. Assurance work provides by a certified accountant, that is by a chartered accountant, and aims to substantiate the data that I have done certain procedures to verify that these amounts exist. And finally, audit discovers data and covers a larger ambit of risk. Like I mentioned, friends, you can see in this triangle that I have tried to build here, audit is the top most form of assurance engagement. It is the strictest form, and therefore the SAs deal with it. Below that are reviews, which also now are becoming extremely common in India. Internationally, friends, a company is not mandated. For example, in India, we have an audit which is done under the Companies Act or under the Income Tax Act. Internationally, if you go to Singapore, if you go to the US, there is no Companies Act mandated audit. Even in Australia, these are only after a certain threshold that the audit gets triggered. But for example, there is a bank finance that has been taken, and the banker insists that no, I want certain form of assurance. There also an annual review is done. It is not a very common practice for you and me, but even the larger firms who have foreign reporting, they also end up doing an annual review. So not just quarterly, annually also it happens. And compilation and financial statement preparation is one word. If you look at this chart that is given here, it very clearly highlights to you what is the difference between audit, review, agreed upon procedure, and compilation. All are dealt with in our standards. An audit is high assurance, but not absolute. Always remember, audit ma je shabd use karyo che, it's a reasonable assurance. So you say, in our opinion, subject to. You can never give an absolute assurance as an auditor, because that is not the role that we are meant to do. So high level of assurance is provided by audits. Reviews have a moderate assurance. Agreed upon procedures, very important for us to understand. No level of assurance is given. It is only you ask me to do ABC and I have done ABC and performed. Yes, you can be found guilty of gross negligence if you have said that I have done ABC and you actually don't end up doing it, but there is no assurance that you are providing. And then there is compilation. Report na language ma bahut important che. Apne audit report apta hoye. At that time, it must say in our opinion. So therefore, it's a positive statement. I'm saying, in my opinion, after having gone through all the facts, this is the opinion of our firm. Whereas when you're doing a review, you are stating nothing has come to our attention. So something that pops out, like I would like to use the word that the MCA secretary Injati Srinivas used at the time of IL&FS. He said that we do not expect auditors to find a needle in a haystack. In a haystack, my needle no piece padyo hoy, tame nahi goto to chalse. But if there is an elephant in the room, an auditor ought to have found it. It may be a review or an audit. Similarly, in a review, if there is something that glaringly pops out, only then you are supposed to report it. It is nowhere as compared stringent to an audit. And on AUP, you only give factual findings. I hope so far I've been able to give you a good overall understanding of the standards, how they are structured, and more importantly, what are the different forms of engagement. કેમ કે આપણે ઘણીવાર અત્યાર સુધી બિલ પણ બનાવતો હોઈએ તો લખી કાઢી auditing services provided to your organization. Please understand, audit is different, review is different, and agreed upon procedure is different. And so many times, friends, I am noticing that our chartered accountants, when the clients have asked for certain information or a certificate, instead of going to the standards, which provide such fabulous illustrations of what the reports can be, we try and come up with our own formats. And when things are okay, nothing goes wrong. But when something is missing and the banks or some other regulator complains to the institute, friends, when I have to see these certificates, it's extremely painful that why did you not use a relevant standard that was available to you? And let me make this statement at this juncture, which is very important for all of us to understand. Standards are not a burden. સ્ટેન્ડર્ડ વાંચવા ક્યાં ખોલે કોણ ચોપડી કોણ ખરીદે શું કામ વાંચવું સાહેબ ઇન્સ્ટિટ્યૂટ તમને એમ નથી કહેતી કે વાંચો અને તમારા પર જોર નાખે છે જો તમે સ્ટેન્ડર્ડ્સ થી કામ કર્યું હશે ને તો tomorrow if your work gets questioned, it may be at the disciplinary level, it may be at NFRA, or it may be at any other level. Actually the standards provide you with a huge protection cover. And believe me, look at all the orders starting this year. If you look at the ICAI.org, and if you go to disciplinary, all orders that are done by the disciplinary benches are uploaded there. We also now have a cause list very similar to how we have it in ITAT, where all the cases are put up. And if you go there and you find the orders which were not guilty relating to audit matters, you will see that the chartered accountant has been able to argue fantastically well and prove his case that I did everything that I was supposed to, that was mentioned in the standard. So this standard is actually there to protect us, to give us a certain level of, as I like to call it, a Suraksha Kavach. UDIN is also one such mechanism which provides misuse of the signature. But for the procedures, your Suraksha Kavach is going to be the audit standards. And therefore, I think these standards have to be understood in far more greater detail than they are right now. So let's now start with the overarching SQC1. The standards on quality control are to be issued by the institute. As of now, one SQC only exists. This is, like I said, the parent standard under which all the other standards fall. This is the breakup. I've taken simply a screenshot from the SQC. All of these, friends, are easily available on the website of the ICAI. Entire content material is there. I'm requesting you that if there is any additional information that you want, please rely on the basic bare content that exists. But to give you an view of the SQC1, friends, this is something all those of you who have got your peer review done will know, that your documentation standards that have to be verified by the peer reviewer start with the SQC1. This provides the leadership responsibilities of quality within the firm, which mentions that as a firm there must be, and a firm, friends, is not defined as a partnership firm. Let's be very clear and categorical. Firm એટલે proprietor, બે partner, ત્રણ partner કે 101 partner, they are all constituted as a firm. તો આપણે મનમાં એવો કોઈ ભ્રમ ના નાખીએ કે હું proprietor છું એટલે હું firmમાં fall નથી થતો. Proprietors are also a firm, and therefore all the standards are applicable to them as much as they are to a firm. So leadership responsibility for quality in the firm has to be very explicitly stated. They also have to ensure that they are followed. So for engagements, there has to be a concurrent quality. The ethical requirements of the organization, and here we have mentioned within the SQC, the standard requires us that the ethical requirements are ensured. For example, there are disqualification of auditors within the Companies Act. You cannot be a shareholder. Similarly, these ethical requirements have to be ensured firm-wise, and that has been covered through the SQC1. It also talks about the human resources, the engagement team that will be deployed. What is their quality? What is their education level? And how are you training them on a regular basis? The engagement performance procedure is laid out. What is the consultation process? If there are any difference of opinions, how do you resolve it? The engagement final documentation and the issuance of report is also covered. And finally, monitoring it on a live basis, because the engagement quality has not to be tested just for one engagement. It has to be a firm-wide process and has to be monitored on a continuous basis. So the SQC1 gives us an overarch. Like I mentioned, there are some important definitions which I have tried to cover on the right-hand side of the screen. One important para of the SQC, and I get this question a lot, is how long? અમારી ઓફિસના ફોટા નથી, ખાલી ઇન્ટરનેટ પરથી જે ફાઇલનો ફોટો મળ્યો એ મૂક્યો છે, પણ આપણે ઘણા બધાની ઓફિસમાં ફાઇલિંગ આ રીતે પડ્યું હોય છે. And people ask the question, how long do I have to retain the audit files? So the audit files, as we are aware, can be a permanent file, can be a current file. The retention para 83 earlier used to be a 10-year period. So a lot of seniors will still be under the impression that audit files are to be retained for 10 years. The SQC1 actually has been amended after we met with the clarity project of the International Auditing Standards Board, and now stands at 7 years. And very important for us to understand that 7 years from the date of auditor's report. What does this mean? આજની તારીખમાં હું માર્ચ 20 માં પતી ગયું છે, તો માર્ચ 13 ની જેટલી મેં ઓડિટો કરી છે એ હું અત્યારે કાઢી શકું? આન્સર ઇઝ નો. પણ જો એ મેં એપ્રિલ 15 કે મે 5 કે મે 10 ની તારીખમાં સહી કરી હોય, so after 31st of May, I'm talking about listed companies, you can get rid of all your audit documents which pertain prior to more than 7 years, that is March 31st 2013. Some people have this question that can a disciplinary proceeding be conducted for more than beyond 7 years? Well, the stated view is very clear. There are multiple orders to this effect confirmed by the High Court also, that if it is something that can be done and proved by you simply, which does not require any engagement, and therefore what I'm trying to state is there is an allegation, it is clear, black and white, that you are in guilt, and there cannot be anything that you have to come and produce, or you yourself understand that there is no working paper. In those cases we can go back, but for all other cases, if it's beyond 7 years, generally the orders are always in the favor of the chartered accountant. So important point for us to note, shorter than 7 years. Now friends, let me come to the standards on auditing, which is the most critical standards which apply to our day-to-day audit, especially the financials that we sign on an annual basis. જે આપણે ઓગસ્ટ સપ્ટેમ્બરમાં ટેક્સ ઓડિટો સહી કરીએ, એની જોડે આપણે કંપનીઝ એક્ટના કંપની ઓડિટ રિપોર્ટ પણ આપતા હોઈએ છીએ, એ બધા ઓડિટમાં આ સ્ટેન્ડર્ડ્સ લાગુ પડશે. These are the auditing standards which were issued under the Clarity project that was initiated by the institute. What is the Clarity project? The International Auditing Standards Board came out with the classification of these auditing standards. If you recall, historically, the AAS that were used to be issued, the numbering used to happen as and when they were required. This is a best international practice where you sequentialize all the standards so that tomorrow, if there is a future need for a new standard, it can get merged into a relevant para or a coding. Not like Income Tax Act where you have 44A, 44AB, 44AC, AD. You don't require an A or B. You only number it between these standards. So the essays are numbered sequentially. The 100 to 199 talks about the introductory matters. 200 to 299 are general principles and responsibilities. If you look at it also, the way it is structured is the beginning ones talk about the engagement, that is at the inception. There are some which talk about during the audit, and also finally that talk about the engagements at the conclusion part. A very quick overview, essay 200, overall objectives of the independence of an auditor. So you have to make sure that you are independent. As we are all aware, the principles of objectivity, integrity, and independence are core to the auditing standards, and those get covered in essay 200. If you look at the ILNFS AQR report that has been conducted by the NFRA, they have very clearly relied on all of these standards and stated at every para where the essay on especially 200, where in their opinion, the auditor has not been independent. And I will give you an example. If you look at the AQR report, it is available on the website. The firm which did the audit, they also found that within that same office, there was another private limited company which functions as a management consulting firm. And they, at that same building from the same server, one team was doing audit work, the other team was engaged, and the invoices which have been listed as part of Annexure B to the AQR say providing valuation services. B, suggesting the management on how to improve your perception among investors. C, designing the logo, branding, and making sure that the perception increases. So these actually, if you look at the 144 of the Act, it very clearly says directly or indirectly the following services shall not be provided. So section 144 in the opinion of NFRA was violated. As of now, this order remains, and therefore what the NFRA has said effectively is what the government has said. So very important for us to understand that when we are providing assurance services, the section 144 has to be read in total. If you are providing assurance services to the client, either directly or indirectly, that is through a sister entity, through a private limited company also, if you are providing bookkeeping services, valuation services, the A to E, which is mentioned in 144, then in my opinion, it will be very difficult for you to argue your case that you are still independent. So SA 200 talks about the independence. The 210 talks about agreeing the terms of audit engagement. અને અમદાવાદની વાત કરું કે ગુજરાતની વાત કરું તો this is where we extremely lack. આપણે ઘણીવાર ક્લાયન્ટનો ફોન આવે અને કહે કે તમારે આ કામ કરવાનું છે અને આટલા વર્ષથી ઓળખતો હોઈએ એટલે સારી ભાવમાં, અને સ્પેશિયલી હવે તો લોકડાઉન પછી કામ દેખાશે એટલે આપણે બધાને એટલો આનંદ થશે કે તરત કામ લઈ લઈશું. પણ The SA 210 we must always follow, not just for audits, for all engagements. You have to agree the terms of audit engagement. The engagement letter, friends, is the most critical sacrosanct document that will provide what was your term, what was your responsibility, and what was the responsibility of the management. આ એક ડોક્યુમેન્ટ છે જેમાં આપણે બે ઓડિટર અને ઓડિટીની રિસ્પોન્સિબિલિટી બહુ ક્લિયરલી કહી દઈએ છીએ. You can also mention in the audit engagement letter, the draft that has been shared by the institute is that the audit engagement will very clearly specify that tomorrow, if there is a peer review within your organization, you will have to share your work papers with the other person who's coming to review it, who's the peer reviewer. Now, these actually would conflict with the auditing standards because they talk about confidentiality. So there is always a carve out in the confidentiality. We have made it in the code of ethics. It is also advisable that in your engagement letter, you create a very clear carve out stating that these documents have to be in future shared with your peer reviewer. Other important facts that must also be there are also given in the standard. For example, the timing of audit, when you expect to commence, the time that you expect to take to complete the audit, and what is also suggested is that the fees, if have been agreed, must also be forming a part of the engagement letter. There are also other clauses that are there. If any of you require a draft engagement letter, I'll be happy to share with you. But I'm glad to mention to you that the institute is also aware that small firms, the SME firms, the proprietors and the small partnership firms, they are not able to develop these tools and these engagements. So we have taken up this assignment, this task as the institute, and we are in the process. You will very soon in this next week see a RFP being floated where a common audit tool and a portal is being developed. What will happen, friends, there is starting from your appointment letter, the engagement letter, to issuance of audit report, your entire sets of documentation. We are also working with a vendor so we can provide all the smaller firms with cloud storage. So we don't want you to go and search for a cloud vendor. We are trying that somebody like a Zoom, if it can come in, we will want to give free video conferencing services to all our members. કેમ કે 45 મિનિટમાં બંધ થઈ જાય કે 1.5 કલાકમાં બંધ થઈ જાય, એના કરતા આપણે આપણા ઘરેથી કામ કરી શકીએ. એના માટે જેટલું પણ રિક્વાયરમેન્ટ છે, we as the institute are extremely concerned about this, and I have raised this within the committee which is taken it up, and I'm assuring you that I will try my best that not just audit tools, but the cloud server, video conferencing facilities, all of this comes under one single package to our members. It will be a cloud-based access online where you can then just mention the name of the client, mention the year, and a beautiful engagement letter for that typical engagement will come out. Please print it, take a copy, keep it for your files. Those files, if you do not want to maintain hard copy, we will be providing cloud storage for you to save that as well. So that entire documentation, which is covered in SA 230, will be made sure that we comply. Of course, there is going to be a huge disclaimer that the institute will put, because we cannot think of all the situations that exist in the world. So therefore, this will be to the best of our understanding. All scenarios will be tried to be covered, but the auditor's judgment, as we all are aware, is extremely critical for all engagements. But this is a huge step. The council, friends, has put up 30 crores. We have set aside 30 crore rupee fund to make sure that we are able to create this software, because it is going to be a huge investment, and we are committed to this. A provision has already made in the financial statements. So I talked about 210, I talked about 230. SA 240 talks about auditor's responsibility relating to fraud. So when a fraud comes up, this is a very old standard that we have always talked about. It is not my responsibility to go looking for a fraud, but when the fraud comes up, what is it that I am supposed to do? The very old statement of Greyhound and Watchdog, this is where it comes from, the SA 240. SA 250 talks about consideration of laws and regulation in an audit of financial statement. So this, friends, is a very important part of the standard. આપણે ઘણા લોકો આને ઇગ્નોર કરતા હતા, અને 250 માં ઓલરેડી એવું લખેલું છે કે ખાલી કંપનીઝ એક્ટમાં ઓડિટ નથી કરવાનું. બીજા બધા લો અને રેગ્યુલેશનમાં જો નોન કમ્પ્લાયન્સ દેખાય તો આપણે ઓડિટ રિપોર્ટમાં એનું ક્વોલિફિકેશન, જસ્ટિફિકેશન, એમ્ફસિસ ઓફ મેટર, or whatever the form is, we have to cover it. SA 250 covered it. If we have not done it, it's fine. But now in the revised code of ethics, there is a concept of NOCLAR, that is non-compliance of other laws and regulations. If you look at the language of both the NOCLAR and SA 250, it is very similar. They talk about the same concepts that are there. And now it will be mandated for us. Thankfully, the institute has been able to convince the government that NOCLAR will only be applicable for listed companies starting now. But all those of us who are doing listed company audits, if you are now going અને તમને દેખાય છે કે ત્યાં 30 employees છે, પણ આપણે આંખ બંધ કરી દેતા હતા ગાંધીજીની એડવાઇસ પ્રમાણે, અને પીએફ નું કમ્પ્લાયન્સ થાય છે કે નથી થતું, આપણે જોયા વગર ઓડિટ રિપોર્ટ, ક્લીન રિપોર્ટ, અનક્વોલિફાઈડ રિપોર્ટ આપતા હતા. Friends, it will not be possible after NOCLAR coming into picture, because there is a material impact. And what NOCLAR and 250 talk about is, if there is a financial impact and if the financial impact is material, those have to be reported by the chartered accountant or the auditor. The SA 260 talks about communication with those charged with governments, the governance, જેને આપણે usually management કહેતા હોઈએ છે. Now they are always referred to as TCWG, those charged with governance, because it is different for different entities. It is a designated partner for a LLP. It is board of directors for a company. It is partners for a partnership firm. So the general concept is not management. We say those charged with governance. SA 265 talks about communicating deficiencies in internal control. And the 299 SA is for joint audit. And here the institute has also some carve-outs that we've done from the international standard, specifically to include the situation of joint bank branch audit, joint central statutory audit, I'm sorry, where there is joint audit of financial statements. So that has been covered in 299. I think those who are central auditors, I could see Hitesh Bhai was one of the participants. This is one document that you will be referring to commonly amongst all other auditors. The 300 to 499 talk about risk assessment and response to assess risk. So these talk about how do you assess the risk, how do you identify risk, what is materiality in planning and during performing an audit. And materiality, friends, is a critical aspect, because that is what is going to also ensure that certain aspects which do not have a huge number and a financial bearing, that do not get covered. So SA 320 talks about the materiality in planning and performing audit. What we are also trying, like I mentioned in the tool that we are trying to build, we will have a set template where we will ask you to put in the turnover and the total asset size. And based on the risk assessment that you have done at SA 315, we will be able to give you a tentative materiality number that can be worked out. So I'm trying to work with this committee to come out with this kind of a spreadsheet where only the turnover and the total asset number is punched, and you can arrive at these numbers. The SA 330 talks about auditor's response to these risks. How will you respond if the threat level is high, the risk is high? 402 and 440 talk about the evaluation of misstatements. Now I will take you through SA 500 to 599. This is the crux of the audit. This is what I like to call the heart of audit procedure, because this is where the actual practical audit aspects get covered. SA 500 to 580, start to end. If you look at it, it starts with audit evidence. Voucher joya, verify karyu, tick kari, kaya color ni tick kari, kya kari, that all gets covered under the SA 500. So that is your audit evidence which you have collected, and you have put a mark stating that you have done your audit, up to SA 580, which talks about the written representation. I will just go through them. The 500 is about audit evidence. 501 is for certain selected items that we have covered. 505 talks about external confirmations. And now in this day and age, friends, we are, when everything is gone online, where we have all the communications happening online, I can share with you my experience in the US. There is a website called confirmation.com, and they now have opened up in India also. They will eventually in the next 1 or 2 years have every bank under the sun within their framework. So what will you have to do as an auditor? A confirmation.com પર જવાનું, client નો bank account number લખવાનો, અને એનો authorized signatory કોણ છે એની ડિટેલ આપવાની, અને તમારું નામ આપી આપણે સબમિટ કરીશું. Immediately an email goes to the authorized signer on his registered email ID saying Chartered Accountant Ajit Bhai Shah has requested that you confirm the bank balance as on 31st March 2020 of XYZ Private Limited. As soon as he says yes, the bank will directly send a confirmation to you through confirmation.com stating the closing balance. So a big process of confirmation gets extremely simplified. I believe confirmation.com already has 3 or 4 banks with them. So if this work from home continues for a longer period, I would suggest some of us can look at that option also. Again, I am not promoting any website. I have no commercial interest. I'm just sharing with you the technologies and the evidences that exist. As you're all aware, confirmation, because it is an external third-party evidence, has much higher value then a standard reconciliation where you are looking at bank statement and bank book, because the bank statement can be fudged, it can be edited. We have all are aware of the Satyam case, but an external confirmation, if it is obtained, it gives you a far higher pedigree of confidence as an auditor. 510 talks about initial audit engagement. What do you do with opening balance? Opening balance testing has to be done under the SA 510. 520 talks about analytical procedures. Again, in the tool, we are building this, the analytical tools comparing current year, prior year. But the analyticals is not just restricted by current year, prior year. The electricity, for example, the units of consumption. What was the unit consumption last year, unit consumption this year? If the unit consumption has increased 20%, and if it's a manufacturing unit, immediately a question must come to your mind. Is there a parallel increase in the revenue? Is there a parallel increase in the expenses, which are directly related to that? Now, these are analytical procedures. There are multiple other documented analytics which exist in the market. We will try and get all of them and put it on the tool. But till the time this tool is built, which will take its own time because of the process that it involves, I would request that analytical procedure templates exist in the market. Again, I will be happy to share with some of them that I have, and they will try and very easily collate and tell you for each line item of expense, what is the analyticals you are supposed to do. 530 talks about sampling. Again, in today's world, tools are available which give you a random sample. A random sample number generator exists. You can use all of these tools to make sure that you are actually doing SA 530. અને આ હું તમને શેના માટે કહું છું કે કાલે ઉઠીને જો આપણું ઓડિટ ક્વેશ્ચનમાં આવે અને કોઈ આપણને પૂછે કે તમે સેમ્પલ કઈ રીતે લીધા હતા, to prove that it was not a biased sample, આપણે એક સેમ્પલ લીધું અને ના ગમ્યું એટલે મૂકી અને બીજું લઈ લીધું. મેં એવું નથી કર્યું. મેં એક સોફ્ટવેર પર એને મને રેન્ડમ નંબર્સ જનરેટ કરીને આપ્યા. Every 230th, 570th, 1115th entry I had to verify. This is what it gave me, and I have sequentially gone as per the software recommendation. It is going to be a huge savior for us to prove that we have done our audit diligently. So audit sampling. 540 talks about estimates. 550 related parties. Again, we have an accounting standard there, also an audit standard related parties. 570 talks about going concern, a standard which is going to be extremely critical now, especially with the COVID-19. We are come out with a big guidance note on the implications, the auditing and assurance implications that this coronavirus will have, especially on financial statements ending on March 31st. I am happy to share that 4 days from now, we are organizing the largest global webinar ever held, which will be hosted by the ICAI, where we have all international experts coming and discussing on the impact of coronavirus on the financials. I would request all of you to please attend it, because from the smallest to the small to the largest of the large, we are all our clients are going to face a lot of pain because of this coronavirus. There will be a lot of effects on the financial statements that we cannot as of today fathom. But if we are able to participate in these conferences, we can then gauge what is the applicability of these on our audits. And finally, the SA 580 talks about written representation. આપણે અમદાવાદમાં એને કોમનલી સર્ટિફિકેટ કહેતા હોઈએ છે કે મેં ઓડિટર તરીકે ક્લાયન્ટ પાસેથી સર્ટિફિકેટ લઈ લીધું. Well, actually, these are all written representations. There is a management representation letter, the MRL, which is extremely critical, which is supposed to be taken at the end of the audit. Again, a format exists, and I will try and endeavor. Ketan Bhai has asked me already on the chat. We will try and give these formats to you, the engagement letter and the management representation letter. So, like I mentioned, 500 to 599, very important part of the audit. I took slightly longer time here because they are important. 600 to 699, using the work of another auditor is 600. 610 talks about using the work of internal auditor, and 620 is the work of an auditor's expert. So 600 can be in the case of branch auditor. It can be in the case of a subsidiary that gets consolidated into you. 610 is for internal audits, and 620 deals with scenarios where we are relying on auditor's expert. For example, when you give out the report under AS15 or for employee benefits, you are using actuaries assumptions. So those all reliances are covered by SA 620. This standard gives you the power to rely on another expert. Finally, the 700 to 799 on a general usual audit, these are the audit standards. 700, આપણે બધાને ખબર છે, SA 700 is our mother standard which talks about the audit report. Generally, આપણે standard વાંચતા નથી, જેની પાસે બી ચોપડીઓ હોય, પહેલા 60-70 પાના ફરાઈ દઈએ અને પાછળ illustration થી ચાલુ કરતા હોઈએ. પણ my request is at least illustration થી તો ચાલુ કરજો, because SA 700 beyond at the back, it gives you 5 different illustrations It is a beautiful illustrative audit opinion for companies, for consolidated accounts, for non-companies, for non-corporate entities. A lot, or I can say majority of the forms of organization that exist in this country, we have tried to cover them in that illustration. And SA 700 ma kaya parama su apu e apelu che, where the basis of opinion comes. What are the forms of qualification in the audit report? So you can give an unqualified report. If you're giving a qualified report, you can give an emphasis of matter. You can have something which we call as disclaimer of opinion. You can also have an adverse opinion. So these are all different opinions that an auditor can use. I have sadly seen certain financial statements where auditors have used all emphasis of matter hoy, પછી qualification hoy, પછી નીચે એક para adverse opinion hoy, અને પછી છેલ્લે disclaimer of opinion આપ્યું હોય. I request you with folded hands, let's read this standard very carefully. It is not a khichdi which you can mix and take paragraphs from different paragraphs or illustrations and make your own audit report. If it is a qualified opinion, the qualification and the basis of qualification is required. If it is an EOM, which is an emphasis of matter, please be very clear in the language. Please always ensure that you are able to quantify it, and the quantification is essential to be put in qualifications also. If it is an adverse opinion, the scenarios must so warrant that you have given an adverse opinion. Or if it is a disclaimer, for example, the company is closed, you are not able to access it, then please give a disclaimer opinion. But please don't merge all and try and create your own format of reporting. These illustrations are there to aid and assist us in preparation of our report. 701, very critical, introduced last year. This is March 20 will be the second year, communicating key audit matters in the independent auditor's report. CAM, as we commonly refer to it. I'm sure some of us would have forgotten in previous year's audit to give this SA 701. When they get picked up for review, we will examine it. But please make sure that in listed companies in this year, if you're doing March 20, you do not miss it, and CAM is covered as a part of the audit report. 705, like I mentioned, is the modification, the opinion of the auditor's report. The qualifications and other parts come here. The 706 talks about the emphasis, and the 710 talks about comparative information, which means is that the financial statements, the audits must always have current year and prior year. SA 710 says comparative information is compulsory, because the user of the financial statement, as I said, audit is not meant for the auditee. You are supposed to compulsorily give corresponding figures in comparative financial statements. That is covered by 710. 800 to 899 talk about certain specialized areas that cover, I think, may not generally always fall for us, so I'm not taking. Now let me move on to the SREs. Recap, SQC at the top, historical information or the audit or review. So now we are talking about the review, limited review je apne SEBI mate apta hoye, or even certain annual reviews that we do. The SRE 2400 revised talks about review of historical financial information, and 410 talks about review of interim financial information. So annual hoy to 2400 and interim hoy to 2410. આપણું જે SEBI નું quarterly report આપીએ છે, that is deriving its entire format from the SRE 2410. Like I said, review is a step lower than assurance, and therefore you are not saying your opinion, you are saying nothing has come to our notice. So that is the standard on review engagement. Other than that, a very important topic is assurance engagements, that is SAE. When do you use SAE? SAE 3400, a very useful standard which talks about examination of prospective financial information. Now, if you look at part 2, schedule 2 of the Chartered Accountants Act, a chartered accountant shall be guilty of professional misconduct if, I'm not reading this from anywhere, so I may make an error, if he by his statement or his report induces others to believe that the future projections shall be achieved. What I'm trying to say here is, તમારા report થી અગર કોઈને એવું લાગતું હોય કે આ 5 વર્ષના આ turnover ને આ profitability રહેવાનું છે, then you are guilty of professional misconduct, because you are not allowed by this Chartered Accountants Act to certify future. Sadly, in the CA final or in the CA intermediate level, we do not have any subject on astrology or astronomy or which can predict the future. So please refrain from doing that. What the standard allows is examination of prospective financial information. And what is the difference? Very important for us to understand. If you take a CMI data for 5 years, simply affix your stamp and signature and give it. What it says is that I am certifying that આવતા 5 વર્ષમાં આટલું turnover અને આટલું profit હશે. That is not the job of an auditor or a chartered accountant. But what you can do is use the illustration which is provided in SAE 3400, where it talks about prospective financial information and say, I have seen in the past historical 10-year data that the growth rate of the company was 8%. The company is projecting, I am not stating, the company is projecting that in the future 5 years also it will grow at 8%. I have verified the mathematical accuracy. એટલે 100 ટર્નઓવર આજના વર્ષમાં છે તો માર્ચ 21 માં 108 હશે. મેં એટલું વેરીફાઈ કર્યું છે. That as per the illustration given in SA 3400 you are allowed to give. So you can examine it to give authenticity about the calculation, but we are not allowed to certify the happenstance or the occurrence of these numbers in the future. So 3400, for all those of you who have always asked me, what do we do when banks ask us to certify projection? Please use this. Always show the standard to them. The 3402 and the 3420 talk about controlled service organization. What this means is sometimes when there is an outsourcing unit or there is a unit where there is shared service happening, their assurance report on a service organization level have to be given. So those are covered under those standards. Now we talk about SRS, which are related services. So not assurance standards, but just other standards which are related services. The first one and extremely important is the SRS 4400, engagement to perform agreed upon procedures. સાહેબ આપણે ઘણા લોકો એવા કામો કરીએ છીએ જેમાં ક્લાયન્ટ આપણને કહે કે મારે આ ઇન્વેન્ટરી છે અને આ તારીખે કેટલી હતી એનું મારે સર્ટિફિકેટ આપવું છે. એટલે આપણે જનરલી શું કરતા હોઈએ, ઉપર મસ્ત બોલ્ડમાં સર્ટિફિકેટ લખીએ, બેઝડ ઓન ધ ઇન્ફોર્મેશન પ્રોવાઇડેડ, બુક્સ ઓફ એક્ઝામિનેશન, blah 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 blah. We are not, this is the amount that we are certifying. Please try and understand. Just 1 second. Thank you. So the SRS 4400, like I mentioned, there are numerous engagements. For example, there is a holding company which exists in a foreign land, and you are a domestic company, you are the auditor of the domestic company. And for certain calculations, they want you to verify, or there are certain aspects that they want you to look at. Or for example, the management says કે અમારે આ વસ્તુ તમારી પાસે ચેક કરાવી છે કે જોડાવી છે. આપણે ઘણીવાર સર્ટિફિકેટ કરી દઈને આપી દેતા હોઈએ છે. My request to all of you is, it's a beautiful standard that relates to AUP, agreed upon procedure, where the format is given. Here again, if you look at the other standards, આપણા ICAI audit reportના જે reporting standards છે, especially SA 701, they don't start with the reference to engagement letter. But please understand, any other engagement which is not an audit, the terms of what you are supposed to do and what the management will do are always in the engagement letter. So if you look at the SAE, if you look at the SRS, or you look at any other standard, it always starts with, we refer to our engagement letter dated dash. And below that in the SRS, I have tried to give you one other illustration, but I can share the SRS 44110 bare text with all of you, especially the illustration at the back, which says, you have asked us to perform ABCD. To verify ABCD, we have done X, Y, and Z. And based on this, this is what we report. That's it. No opinion is given, no certificate is given. It's a beautiful format. All your clients, all banks always accept it. Somehow થાય છે શું કે આપણે લોકોએ બેંકોને કે બીજા થર્ડ પાર્ટી એન્ગેજમેન્ટ્સને એટલી ટેવ પાડી કાઢી છે ને કે એમના મુતાબિકના સર્ટિફિકેટ આપણે આપીએ. વી આર નેવર રિલાઇંગ ટુ આવર ઓન. તમે ઘણીવાર ડોક્ટર પાસે ગયા હો અને ડોક્ટરને જઈને આપણે એવું કહીએ કે સાહેબ ઉધરસ થઈ છે, પેલી 2 પિંક વાળી 3 લાલ વાળી ને 1 યલો વાળી દવા આપી દો. ના, ડોક્ટર એનું કામ કરે ને એ પ્રિસ્ક્રિપ્શન રાખે છે. આપણા પ્રોફેશનમાં સેડલી એવું થઈ ગયું છે, because we have been so forthwith and coming to certain clients or to the banks in particular, that banks ask us certain report and we give them. Now those are not reports that you are actually supposed to give. સાહેબ પેલા માણસ આવ્યો તો તમારી પાસે કોરોનાની બીમારી લઈ અને તમે એને ફોર એક્ઝામ્પલ સાદી શરદીની દવા આપી દીધી, it is not going to treat him. Each case is different and each that requires different medicine. Similarly, each engagement is different and each engagement requires a different standard and a different reporting requirement. So just don't rely on SA 700. Please look at SAE for that I shared with you for prospective information 3400, SRS 4410, which talks about 4400, which talks about agreed upon procedures. And I'm sure once all of you go through it, you will find it extremely useful to you in your day-to-day practice. In my firm, after me joining and having introduced this, every year we are giving, I believe, from 10 to 12 certificates using this format. And I'm sure આપણા બધામાં 5 થી 10 કામ આ પ્રકારના થતા જશે. So please review it. પણ જે વધારે થતા છે એ સ્ટાન્ડર્ડ પર હું હવે આવું છું. How many of us are aware of the guidance note on report or certificates? It is an institute publication, last revised in 2016. I don't think I can hear you back because probably all of you will be muted, but I'm 100% certain, I've done this in a physical seminar also, 75 to 80% people don't even know this guidance notes exist. આમાં બી આગળના 70 પાના તમે નહીં વાંચો ને ચાલશે કેમ કે that is guidance. અને because certificates don't have a particular framework of auditing reporting, we have covered all the standards crux at the beginning. But at the end, there are some extremely good illustrative formats for certificates. And that is why I want to take you through this right now. The illustrative report format of the certificate. આ તમે લોકોએ બધાએ I'm sure પ્રેક્ટિસમાં હશો એટલે કોઈ ના કોઈ સમય આપ્યો હશે. Either turnover certificate, either net worth certificate, working capital certificate, or similar engagement that you would have covered. This guidance note provides you with a fantastic illustrative format. Again, like I mentioned, if all of you can read through it, here on the first line it says this report is issued in accordance with the terms of our engagement letter dated dash. Like I said, except SA 700, all your certificates, all your reports must always quote the engagement letter. સાહેબ એ engagement letter તમને બચાવી શકશે. જે તારીખમાં બનાવ્યું હોય બનાવીને મૂકી રાખો. મારે સીધા નથી કેવું પણ આ તમે રિપોર્ટમાં લખેલું હશે કે આ સર્ટિફિકેટ મેં engagement letter આ પ્રમાણે આપ્યો છે. It can be a great savior to all of you. So please ensure that the engagement letter is referred. Then you look at this. I'm just going to scroll through the entire format. I've taken screenshots of this illustrative format for you to refer. The first point talks about, if you look at the first point, it talks about the engagement letter. The second talks about what the work is supposed to be. So the annual turnover, working capital, whatever is to be verified. The third para talks about management's responsibility. So we are first stating what is the management's responsibility in this statement, where we are very clearly saying that the preparation, maintenance of all accounting and other supporting is the responsibility of management. I am not responsibility. They are also responsible for design, implementation, and maintenance of internal control. They are also, for example, if you're giving it for a tender purpose, the management is also responsible for ensuring that the company complies with the requirements of tender document. So, કાલે ઉઠીને કોઈ કહે કે તમારા ચાર્ટર્ડ એકાઉન્ટન્ટે સર્ટિફિકેટ આપી દીધો તમે તો ટેન્ડરમાં ક્વોલિફાઈ જ નથી થતા. This paragraph is extremely critical to ensure that fulfilling those criteria is the responsibility of the management. What is the responsibility of us as the practitioner is here. And I know a lot of members within our CA association, within the T Club, who are actually giving these kind of certificates. And I can assure you, very few of us will be actually using this illustration. So I'm hopeful and confident that some amount of validation can be done through this. And that is why I'm taking you through this whole standard. So this talks about what is our responsibility, what is the audited financial statement that we have referred to, and finally, what have we concluded, and that we have complied with the SQC1 that the institute has provided. Like I said, is the overarching principle of all audits. Finally, para 9 talks about our opinion, which can be the amount of turnover, the current asset, liability, whatever it is. And a very important part is restriction of use. I would request with folded hands once again, you must always mention this. હું ઘણા આપણા ચાર્ટર્ડ એકાઉન્ટન્ટને બી કહું છું, આપણે નેટવર્કનું સર્ટિફિકેટ આપીએ ને તો કદી લખતા નથી શેના માટે છે. એક ભાઈએ મને પૂછ્યું કે ના સાહેબ હવે હું લખું છું નીચે કે નેટ વર્થ સર્ટિફિકેટ ઓફ મિસ્ટર એક્સ ઇશ્યુડ ફોર ધ સ્પેસિફિક પર્પસ ઓફ ઇશ્યુઅન્સ ઓફ વિઝા. મેં એમને કીધું સાહેબ એમાં બી એક સુધારો કરો, આગળ એમાં લખી દો યુએસ વિઝા, કેમ કે 2 મહિના પછી યુકે વિઝા માટે અપ્લાય કરશે ને તો એ જ સર્ટિફિકેટ વાપરશે. લેટ હિમ કમ બેક ટુ યુ and get a new certificate for UK visa. When you are issuing it for US visa, please mention this certificate is only for the purpose of US visa, not for UK visa. So That is why the restriction of use paragraph will be extremely useful for you. Who has requested it and who can use it? You can mention it on your certificate. And finally, you are supposed to sign it. Like you're aware, membership number, firm registration number, and UDIN will be compulsory besides the place and date of signature. Before I conclude, two important questions that I would like to answer. This is coming from the FAQ on UDIN. The first talks about the prospective financial statement. Now all of you, because we have gone through all the standards, are aware that SAE 3400 talks about prospective financial statements. Like I mentioned, clause 3, part 1 of the second schedule of the Act prohibits a member in practice to give engages in estimation of earnings or future transactions, which lead to the belief that you as auditor are vouching for the accuracy. But SAE 3400 allows you to do certain things with financial forecasting and reporting of prospective information. Similarly, for provisional information or financial information, sometimes people say unaudited api dida. Sahib, tame sahi kari report apyo to unaudited kahi thi dayo. If you are giving only preparing it in a required format, then please use SRS 4410, which talks about compilation engagements. And finally, the last question that comes on the UDIN also is, can I issue a certified true copy? I have time and again mentioned this. One more time that I will mention it is that legally, Supreme Court has also opined and decided on this, that only gazetted officers can give a certified true copy. And therefore, we are not, as you are aware, chartered accountants are not gazetted officers, and it is not our prerogative to issue a true copy. But based on what I have discussed in the foregoing, what we can do is we can issue a certificate. For example, the bank seeks that a income tax return, so acknowledgement is given to you, and as a chartered accountant, they expect you to certify. Let's understand what do they want. They want to ensure that આ PDF માં કોઈ રમત કરીને કોઈ આંકડા નથી બદલ્યા. આ જે numbers છે એ જ income tax ની website પર છે. So always, along with the acknowledgement, attach your certificate stating what you have done, that I have, as on this date, gone to the income tax department's portal and verified that the gross total income or the net income was this much. And always mention the date, because as we are all aware as tax practitioners, subsequently he may go and revise his return. So as on the date of your verification, mention that I have seen this and I am issuing my certified audit report or certificate. So these are three important aspects that are dealt with UDIN. I hope that with this, I have been able to do justice with the topic that I was given. I took you through the SQC, the standard auditings, the review engagements, the assurance other engagements, and also I tried to cover the guidance note which exists for certificates and reports, which also gives us a lot of information, not just the illustrative format at the back, but a lot of guidance on how certificates can be issued. I was allotted 1 hour 15 minutes to take through the topic. I think it's 5:15, so we'll be exactly on time, and I would like to leave the balance 15 minutes for any questions that any of you may have. I thank all of you very, very much for a patient hearing, and I most humbly hope that I have been able to do justice to the topic that was provided to me. Thank you very much. Over to you, Ketan bhai.
Yeah, Aniket, I have sent one question in chat. Just check that.
Increase in uncertain risk of follow-up pressure may not be able to take action. We may have to learn that on such scenarios require amendment of report. Please. Okay, so very good question. What will happen because of the coronavirus? So, for example, certain audit procedures, for example, verification of inventory, we have something called the rollback, which mentions that you can always roll back and do the audit. So, you cannot take inventory on 31st of March, but 5th May આપણે જઈને અગર લીધું હોય, so you do a rollback procedure, reconcile the numbers and do it. Certain audit procedures, you will never be able to do it from 31st March. For example, you may not be able to visit a premise and get physical documents, and you will be relying on certain electronic evidence, like you rightly mentioned in that example. In fact, today even Harinderjit Singh has come out with an article explaining this same fact. So we as an institute are very conscious of what the challenges our members will face. It is going to be our endeavor in the coming few weeks, because as of now, we do not know when it will be lifted, and we do not want to come out with some guidance assuming કે 2 મહિના સુધી audit નહીં થાય, because already some bank branch auditors have written letters of confirmation to the banks stating that we are not in a position to do the bank branch audit. Our family is not feeling safe in us getting out, which has prompted the banks to start thinking whether branch audit should be done or not. So we do not want to spread any panic right now, but at an appropriate time, guidance for these specific matters of, if you have not relied on the physical evidence but looked at electronic evidence, what suitable amendment in the auditor's opinion can be done, the institute will surely be coming. The Auditing Standard Board is actually working on it. The next question is from Ashutosh Bhai Nanavati. In view of, okay, I think we have covered that. Certification of stock and debtors for submission to bank would fall under no. So stock and debtors does not fall under prospective financial information because you are not doing it. It will be covered by the guidance note that I told you regarding issuance of report and certificates. It is not prospective. Sab stock and debtors to as on date aapta hoye je, and therefore it is going to be covered by the guidance note that I have taken you all through.
Members, any other question? So Anand, shall we conclude?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I request Prakash Bhai said to have a formal vote of
There's one more. Sorry, there's one more question.
Yes.
From
Okay.
Sanjay. Unmute. Ketan, unmute. Aniket.
Yeah, sorry, I have the habit of muting myself when I'm not speaking because that is how we are able to do this. So I think there are a couple of more questions that are coming. How auditor's independence is ensured when the firm is appointed by the company itself? Fantastic question. Let me share with you certain discussion that has happened recently in the council, and we have now replied to the MCA. If you look at the consultative paper that the MCA issued, they have raised this question themselves, saying integrity and independence are key cornerstones of professional activity. And when the auditor is appointed by the company, how is independence ensured? This was the question. Within the council, we had a big deliberation. The 139, section 139 of the Companies Act gives powers to shareholders to appoint. So there is an argument which is there in the market saying that shareholders are the ultimate owners and therefore they are appointed. But there is also a very important view which we have to understand is that actually it is not the shareholder, it is the principal shareholder or the promoter who ends up appointing. And the comfort of that principal shareholder and the promoter with the audit firm is always seen. So there is a view within the government that we must, at least for listed entities, come up with a framework of allotment of all listed company audits on the basis of the panel. They have also asked our view on what panel should be, what should be the mechanics of it. Let me share with you, friends, we had a very different opinions. For myself, I can share with you with full conviction. I have 100% supported this agenda, stating that let there be a panel. I cannot look at it personally ke mari firm ne ke mane su nuksan che. My view at the council was, and it is recorded, is that we must absolutely support this government's initiative of appointment through a panel. Let there be independent appointment, and the Companies Act already provides for a fixed tenure of 5 to 10 years for appointment. So if you are assured 5 years and you know that the management has no power to remove you, the amount of confidence that you get and the independence you get is unmatched. I have raised this again. Certain vested interests have other opinions, and of course certain educated opinions also exist. I wouldn't like to call all of them vested, but be that as it may, the final institute opinion has gone to MCA. Sadly, this lockdown has been effected, or else they were very keen to take a decision in the first weeks of April on this discussion of what they want to do regarding appointment and whether a free independent agency can do it. But I'm still confident. The consultative paper is not disposed by the MCA. It is still in the reckoning and consideration. They will require to amend the Companies Act. They will also require to form a external agency which can empanel, because we have said we as regulator cannot have a panel. NFRA also cannot. MCA itself cannot. But a third party can maybe create that panel. So I appreciate that suggestion. And it's something that the government is also considering.
Okay.
What
Aniket,
about, yeah.
Gaurang Bhai is having some question.
Yeah, I'll just read through the 2 other questions and then I'll take his question. Just give me 1 minute. Internal audit.
Hello.
Yeah, एक minute, Gaurang bhai. Internal audit, there are different internal audit standards. As of now, the internal audit standards are not mandatory. To answer Viral's question, from Namrata, for issuing certificate of turnover net worth, format is valid for bank and others. Yes, it is valid. Like I said, bank ko તમારે bank ને format આપવાનો હોય, bank એ તમને ના આપવાનો હોય. RBI doesn't prescribe formats. જ્યારે તમે બેંક બ્રાન્ચ ઓડિટનું ફોર્મેટ આપણે જે ઇન્સ્ટિટ્યૂટનું ફોર્મેટ ઓડિટ રિપોર્ટ એ પ્રમાણે જ આપીએ છીએ તો સર્ટિફિકેટનું પણ આપણે એ જ રીતે આપવું પડે. You have to be very clear in your conviction and tell them, take the auditing standard with them and tell him that this is the only report I can give. And if you come across somebody else who has compromised and given a certificate, please immediately raise it to the institute and we will take appropriate action. Gaurang bhai.
Keep the audit record and working papers in the digital form instead of physical file.
Absolutely, yes. You can maintain audit evidence in electronic format. The auditing standards allow for it. The Companies Act provides for books of accounts to be maintained electronically. Similarly, even audit evidence, all audit engagement process can be done electronically. Like I mentioned, the software that we are coming out at the institute level will also require you to maintain the file electronically. A lot of the firms in India, even today, are scanning and digitally keeping these records. Absolutely no problem. Gaurang bhai, you can keep it digital.
Because so many people are so many firms providing the data in e-form in a peer review.
Gaurang bhai, absolutely રખાય એ ફોર્મમાં કોઈ જ પ્રોબ્લેમ નથી. ખાલી એટલું જ જોવાનું કે એઝ એન ઓડિટર જ્યારે હું ઓડિટ કરતો હોઉં અને મને કોઈ ડોક્યુમેન્ટ ઓરિજિનલ કે જેન્યુઇટી જોવી હોય, at that time it is auditor's judgment to rely on the physical document. But nowhere in the standard is there any prohibition for you to use electronic evidence. You can use electronic evidence. The standard on audit evidence also provides for it, and the audit documentation standard also allows you to save it electronically.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Nathan bhai, if there is any other question?
No, not yet.
Okay.
So Prakash bhai, please proceed.
Yeah. On behalf of Professional Development Committee of CA Association, I thank our CCM Aniket Talati for accepting our invitation and enlightening us on a offbeat topic like practical aspects of assurance standards in our day-to-day practice. I also thank him for his assurance to share his presentation. I also thank all the participants for joining us in very large number, even though the topic is not related to income tax or GST. I really thank all the participants. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.